What's going on, guys? Drewzy here, back again with another South Park Phone Destroyer video, and as promised for this week, as well as kind of going alongside with the current weekend event that's going on, we are going to be updating the Best of Cartman video that we have done already on the channel, but we did it with just 3 of the Cartmans when I did this Best of series. This was the first Best of that I did do, and there has been a Cartman added to the game, with CUPID Cartman as being added. Even though he's a figment of Cartman's imagination, I'm going to count him as a Cartman card for this Best of episode. So all 5 of the Cartmans currently within the game will be reviewed, will be discussed, pros and cons of each, updated for you guys to have better knowledge base of Cartman going forward within the game. We will not be showing any gameplay in this video, as I don't show gameplay when I do these best of videos. I just showcase the card, talk about why they're good, why they're bad, and of course let me know down below if you agree, disagree with any of the stuff and any of the topics and reasons why I voted them in the categories that I did. Let's just go ahead and start with the first one and start with number 5 on the breakdown. So coming in at number 5 is the Osimo 4000. Now, as much as I would have loved Osimo to be better in this game, there are some reasons why Osimo is still considered, in my opinion, the worst Cartman within the game. He does have the 3rd best health scaling within all the Cartmans within the game. It is fairly good. He does look like, especially in lower ranks of PvP, he is very useful because he has such great health scaling even at a lower level. It doesn't increase quite as rapidly as he levels up as some of the other Cartmans do, or some of the other even tank cards do within the game, but he does have pretty good health scaling, so he's going to have really good survivability for you lower level people. But when you get to the higher tiers of PvP and legendary and things and beyond, you will hardly ever see Osimo used at all. He has pretty good DPS, the 3rd highest DPS of all the Cartmans, the 2nd highest of the Cartman tank cards. CUPID Cartman does have much higher DPS than any of the other Cartmans do because he's not a tank card. Some of the cons: his ability, his charged, is not that great. It freezes enemies with a cosmic stomp nearby. It has one of the funniest animations at the very beginning, as far as what he states every time that he does it, but it just isn't as overwhelming. It doesn't do a great amount of damage. The range isn't that great. There's just a lot of reasons why the charge ability isn't that awesome. He is an epic rarity. That is another con of him, is that he is such a high rarity, so it's going to be hard to level him up. That's just something you guys are definitely going to notice with epic cards, is that after you get them past level 2 into level 3, it's just going to be very hard to level them up throughout the course of this game. His cost out of 5 is okay, but it's still a little high, which I would consider a con for him, is his energy cost. And I mean, he's the only sci-fi tank card that we have, but in reality, tank cards have lost a lot of value within this game. You don't see as many people running tank cards anymore. There is one specific tank card, which is one that we're going to talk about later in this video, that is probably the only tank card I see used on the regular. A lot of other tank cards pretty much have just become obsolete. Fighters are so much stronger now that you're just not going to see as many tank cards, so a lot of these cards are just going to be to an undervalued point, especially in Legendary Arena. You're just not going to see, you don't see a lot of Legendary players running tank cards anymore because they just don't have the scaling capabilities that fighter cards do as far as usefulness once they get to the higher tiers. So that's just my opinion. So Osimo coming in at 5. Let's just move on to number 4. So coming in at number 4 is Grand Wizard Cartman. Now, I wanted to try to think in my head that Grand Wizard Cartman is a good card, but he's just not, guys, and there's a lot of reasons why. There are 2 pros of Grand Wizard Cartman. He has great health scaling, the 2nd best health scaling out of all the Cartman cards. It is very good for what you need it to do. I think that Grand Wizard Cartman, even at level 2 Legendary, can be used even in the mid tiers to the higher relative tiers of PvP in Legendary Arena, and there's not a lot of Legendary cards that can say that. I think Mecha Timmy, in all reality, is the only other Legendary card that at maybe level 2 you could still see in the 200s and 300s and still be somewhat viable. The Grand Wizard Cartman has that capability because of his health scaling, but that's about it. The cons of him, which there are a long list of, unfortunately, his Legendary rarity. That's a con for most cards, is the fact that he's just not going to be able to be leveled very quickly because it's going to be very difficult to find his cards. His cost of 6 energy is super high and super terrible against him. It needs to be lowered if he's going to be any better or any useful, or you're going to see any more use of him, in my opinion. I think that needs to be lowered down to a 5 to at least make him somewhat viable. I mean, he's just not used that much, guys. It's just reality. There are some people that I know that love him, and I know that there are a lot of people, I've seen a decent amount of people use him, but I mean, outside of events lately, I haven't seen him hardly at all in the mid, and I'm in like the 2 to 3 thousands of PvP, and I don't see him. I mean, I made a video with him when I unlocked him, but I never saw anybody else really play him that much. Another con is his charge ability is not devastating at all. It hardly does any damage. 45 damage, it hardly does anything, and it takes 10 seconds to build that back up to cast it again, so you're hardly ever going to use it more than once. And his damage output is very minimal and very bad. Granted, it's a tank card, so tank cards, you're not expecting high damage output. If you are, then you're doing something wrong, but that's not what tank cards are designed for. They're designed to soak up a lot of damage and distract, so your other units can then do the damage. But his damage is the worst out of all the Cartmans, so that does work against him. So all in all, unfortunately, Grand Wizard Cartman, not that great of a card. Wish he was better, but in reality, I just don't see how he's that viable and should be ranked higher on this list. Number 3 is Sheriff Cartman. So Sheriff Cartman, I think, moved up one spot on the list from my last video. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Sheriff Cartman coming in at number 3. And there's a couple reasons why Sheriff Cartman is a little bit higher. His rarity is rare, which is nicer, and it's going to be easier for him to get leveled up and obtain him because you can request him as donations from your clan. You can get him easier in packs or in, things like that. So you're going to see Sheriff Cartman more often. So he's going to be able to scale a little bit better, get leveled up faster. His charge ability is pretty good. It damages nearby enemies with his bullet tantrum. It doesn't do an insane amount of damage, but the big pro of it is that it will hit both air units and ground units. That is something that some of these other abilities just don't do. Osmos will freeze air and ground, so it will do that. But the fact that Sheriff Cartman will actually do good damage, where Osmos does hardly any damage whatsoever, it mostly just does the freeze itself. It does do a little bit of damage, but Sheriff Cartman's does extensively more damage, which makes it much better. He also has the fastest attack speed of all the Cartmans, and one of the fastest attack speeds of any card within the game, so he has pretty good DPS for a tank card, the fact that he's going to be hitting faster, but that's one of the upsides of Adventure Theme. Adventure Theme really focuses on fast attack speed, which is really a big plus for them, and Sheriff Cartman is a prime example of that with his attack speed and DPS potential. So all those things considered, Sheriff Cartman definitely has a lot of pros. Some of the cons for him, however, his health scaling is not as good as some of the other Cartmans are. I think it's one of the lower ones, at least it's the lowest of the tanks. It is concerned. I mean, Cupid does not have great health scaling because he's not a tank card. Another con that's kind of a minor con is that out of this theme and Adventure Theme, he's probably one of the lower tier cards of Adventure Theme. I mean, there's a lot of strong cards within Adventure Theme. There's some mid-tier and some lower tier cards of Adventure Theme as well, but I think that he's going to get underused and undervalued. I mean, yes, you get him early on in the game, and he's the first tank, I believe, you obtain when you first get this game and whatnot, so you're going to be tempted to boost him up, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in the early stages, but then once people kind of get him to level 2, maybe level 3, then they kind of just leave him alone and stop touching him. And I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't do that, but you're going to figure out a card that's going to fit your playstyle. There's just a lot of really strong cards within Adventure Theme to where Sheriff Cartman might be put on the back burner to put those materials towards some of these other cards within this theme. So I think that's a minor con, not a huge con for him, but there's a lot of pros for him as well. That's why he's a little bit higher in the list. Number 2 is Cupid Cartman. Cupid Cartman is a huge favorite of mine. I love Cupid Cartman. His death animation or death, dialogue is the funniest thing in the entire game. And just his dialogue in general is fantastic, but that's not why he's so high on the list. A lot of the reason is because of the fact that he is a range card, but he's a pretty solid range card. He flies, which is rare. There aren't very many of those. I believe there's only 3 right now within the game that are flying range cards. He has a pretty low cost at 3 energy, the second tied for the lowest cost of all the Cartmans currently within the game. He has very good damage scaling especially for a flying unit, although it only does single target damage versus someone like Terrence Mephisto, who's also flying, does area damage or AoE damage. CUPID Cartman will only do single target damage, but he will do a pretty good job in scaling in that damage as he levels up to where he will be able to do quite a bit of damage to any other flying unit or any other unit really on the field. And the last big pro for him is his movement speed. He has very quick, fast movement speed for a ranged card. I believe it's the fastest of all the ranged cards. So he almost feels like an assassin in the sky, to where how fast he moves around the map and is able to just poke and do damage to other enemies. That's just a very big pro to him. For his cons, very low range, which is not very good for a flying, especially ranged unit. The fact that he has a 2 range, which is the lowest, I believe, of any of the ranged cards right now within the game. So he's just going to be, you know, up close and personal. It could be easier to pick him off if you're able to get another ranged unit out there, because they're going to focus on generally someone that's a ranged unit first. He can sometimes get himself in trouble being up close in front of another tank or another card, and can make him much easier to counter. His attack speed could be better. It's not the greatest attack speed, it's not the worst, but it's about mid-tier as far as attack speed, which is a minor con for him. And another minor con is he doesn't really have an ability whatsoever. It just says he's flying, cute, speedy, and annoyingly romantic, but that's not really any kind of ability. It would be, not that he really necessarily needs an ability. I don't know what it would be even if he had one, but of course having an ability is always better than not having one, so that has to be a con to some degree, that he doesn't have an ability in that regard. But all in all, CUPID Cartman's still a solid card within the game. No change at the top from the previous video that we did on this. Zen Cartman is still the best Cartman within the game, still the best tank within the game in my opinion. There's not a lot of really great tanks anyways, but to me Zen Cartman rises above them all currently, primarily due to the fact that he is the lowest cost of any tank that I'm aware of at 3 energy, so he's going to be able to be cast much more regularly. The best health scaling out of any of the tanks currently within this video, and that's a huge plus to him, but he needs that health scaling because he doesn't do any damage. That's really the only con that Zen Cartman has. He has no damage whatsoever, and he doesn't really that's not what he's designed for. He's designed to be an extremely annoying character card, and that is exactly what he does with his charge ability, where he tracks enemies nearby. And that is, the aura has been nerfed, but it still charges. It lasts for 4 seconds, and it takes 5 seconds to build up the charge ability to then cast it. So you can get it very quickly. You can do it a lot more often than some of the other abilities other Cartmans have. His low cost, his good health scaling, there's a lot of pros to Zen Cartman, and really the only negative that I find is, again, he doesn't do any damage. So all in all, I think we can easily agree that Zen Cartman is the best of the Cartmans. So let me know, guys, down in the comment section if you agree, disagree with any of the statements that I made. Again, I really wanted Grand Wizard Cartman to be better of all these Cartmans, because I really have enjoyed playing him in that video and was happy to finally unlock him. But he just needs a little bit better health scale, a little bit better scaling, a little bit more damage with his charge ability to really be viable. But again, let me know your list down below, or any of the other best videos that you would like me to redo, as I'm going to start going through and editing them as I see fit. Stan will definitely need to get an upgrade. The Randys will probably need to get an upgrade as well. But if there's any other ones you guys would like to see, let me know down in the comments section down below. But until next time, guys, my name is Drewzy.